August kigger på personen foran sig. Det er mor. August kigger på personen foran sig. Det er mor. In these two sentences, only the last word, more and more, were different. One of them has stød, the other one doesn't, and it changes totally the meaning of sentence. This video is about the stød, which is a crucial, super important part of the Danish language. Welcome to Mix Languages, I'm Mik. And so, the stød. This topic is probably the most requested by the viewers of this channel for the last months. Now I've finally gotten my things together to be able to produce a video on it. And I'm actually going to make this video, which is kind of an introduction, and a few more, where we go more in depth with the stød. Stød is super important. So in this first video, I'm going to first show you how the stød sounds. Right? How do words sound when they have it and when they don't have it? Then I'm going to give you some basic information about the stød. And then I'm going to give you information about when to use the stød. When is it used? When is it not used? Okay, let's first hear how the stød actually sounds. In the introductory sentences, you heard the word mor and mor. Mor, murder. Mor, mother. And right, you can hear mor has stød, and we kind of abruptly stop the sound. Mor. Whereas we don't do that in mor. Mor. Other examples. Man. Man. Hund. Hund. Toget. Toget. Hænder. Hænder. Det hænder, at min søn glemmer at vaske sine hænder, inden vi skal spise. Det hænder, uden stød, at min søn glemmer at vaske sine hænder med stød, inden vi skal spise. We could also look at the stød on a vowel in these two words. The same word actually pronounced in two different ways. På. 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 I'll talk about this in one of the other videos on the stød, where we're going to look at the different word classes. We're going to look at a video only on adjectives regarding stød, and only on prepositions. På is a preposition, right? På, på. I'll explain when to use the stød and when to use the not stød form in the video on prepositions and stød. The next thing I want to talk about is the phonetic transcription of the stød. We'll look at, for example, here, hun, right? Hun in the dictionary Den Danske Ordbog, which I have made a video on, which I recommend you to use. Hun, there is no stød. But if we now look at hun, there is stød, and we can see the stød in this symbol, this kind of question mark symbol. This shows that there's stød. Another important thing about the stød is that it can be in different parts of the words. Let's compare these words here. Vild, hvil. Both of these words have stød, but here in vild, as you see in the dictionary here in the Danske Ordbog, vild, the stød is on the L sound, whereas in hvil, the stød is on the E sound, right? The question mark comes after the sound where we have stød. Also here, fugl, fuld, right? Fugl, stød on the vowel, fuld on the L sound. Fuglen har tømt et fuldt glas snaps. Nu er den fuldstændig fuld. Fuglen, stød on the U, har tømt et fuldt stød on the L sound, fuldt glas snaps. Nu er den fuldstændig fuld, stød on the full again. The last word, but no stød on the fuldstændig. Right? I don't say fuldstændig, I said fuldstændig. That is a specific thing with composite words. I'm going to talk about that in another video. A video on stød with composite words. Very important. Okay, so now some basic information about the stød. First of all, in English it's often called a glottal stop. A glottal stop. Glottal is here, stop. You stop the airflow. Some people think this is not the right way of calling it, but that's not really important, I would say, for understanding how this works and how it sounds, right? So another important thing is that not all dialects of Danish have it. There is like something called stødgrænse. the Stød border. South of that Stødgrænse, many people would not use the Stød in their local dialects. But the Stød is a part of what we call rigsdansk, and that's what I speak. Rigsdansk is like the proper, normal, most normal way of pronouncing Danish, and that has Stød always. People from Copenhagen would always use Stød. So when I talk about Stød here in this video, and in all my videos, when I talk about pronunciation, I'm talking about the normal or most like accepted way of pronouncing Danish. And this doesn't mean that other forms of pronouncing Danish are not correct. It's just I use the most normal one. Another rule of Stød is that normally there cannot be Stød if the syllable is not stressed. If we're talking about an unstressed syllable, we normally do not have Stød. And then there's a concept which is very important for the Stød. In later videos, for example, when we talk about the verbs and Stød, we're going to talk about this concept a lot, which is called stødbasis. Stødbasis, the base for Stød. Stødbasis talks about that there are only specific sounds that can have Stød. For example, these the vowel sounds can all have Stød. All the vowel sounds can have Stød. And then only the following consonant sounds can have Stød on them. This W sound, which we for example have in the word dag. Dag is a kind of a different way of saying goddag. Dag. It's kind of a short form. Dag. Then we have the J sound, which we have in nej. Nej. There's Stød as well, right? You see the question mark here in this word. This next symbol is the ng sound, which we have in sing. Sing. With Stød again. The next one is the soft D, right? In mad, for example. The next one is the M sound. That's as we write it, right? As we read it, that's the same sound. It's easy to decipher. Kam, for example. Kam, the thing you use for your hair, comb. And the next one, the N sound. Sand, as in sand, from the beach. And the last one, which is the L sound, which we have, for example, in fuld. The word fuld we've already talked about. Okay. So those were some basic information about the Stød, and now let's look at when to use it. Let's look at some basic rules for the Stød. We've already talked about the words hund, hun, for example, man, man, mor, mor. So that's one basic rule. When we have words ending in nd, ld, and rd, that is very often, or probably always. I wouldn't say always in Danish ever, but I would say I haven't come across any words where it doesn't give us Stød. So if the word ends in one of these combinations, we have Stød. Another case where we almost always have Stød is in the imperative form. That's the order form of the verbs. Do that, come here, close the window. The imperative in Danish is always formed by the infinitive without an E. For example, if I say the infinitive høre, I would say the imperative form hør, and this has Stød. Hør, right? I don't say hør, I say hør, hør. So imperative almost always has Stød, unless there is no Stød basis. We'll talk about that more in depth in the video on Stød in verbs. Then we have what I call the E rule. The E rule tells us, for example, we had before hund, and we could also have hunde. Hund, hunde. Maybe you hear it, that hund, of course, continues having Stød, but hunde does not. I don't say hunde, I say hunde, hunde. So when a word ends in an E, we almost never have Stød. Other example could be in adjectives, for example, god and gode, right? Adjectives have 3 different forms. I'll talk about that in a separate video as well on adjectives and Stød. But here we have god Stød and gode no Stød, right? I don't say god, I say gode, right? This rule is not valid for one-syllable words. That's important to note. So it wouldn't be valid, for example, for te, ske, ske, teaspoon, right? These are one-syllable words, so they do actually have Stød. One more case where we very often have Stød is when a word ends in a stressed vowel. if it's a long vowel sound. So for example, in the word politi, this is stød, politi, or just the word ti actually, as in 10. Other words could be bo, as in live somewhere, bi, as in the insect, bi, rå, as in raw food, for example, ko, as in cow, så, as in the past tense of ser, right? I saw something yesterday. So, and actually all letters in the alphabet have stød. Not all, but the ones that end in a vowel. For example, A, stød, B, C, D, E, F does not have stød, G, H, I, all of these have stød. But we do not have stød in the following words. Så, now in this case as a conjunction, not as a verb, as the past tense form så, past tense of to see, but here så, nu, vi, I, de. Right? No stød in any of these, because they actually have short vowel sounds, right? Compare here. For example, bo, that's a long sound. Bo, to the word nu. Okay, that was the introduction on the stød. Now you know how the stød sounds, and you have heard some information about it, some general information about it, and you also know, at least you have a few rules as to when it appears and when it does not appear. Now I really recommend you to watch the next videos in this series, where, as I already said, we are going to go into depth with the different word classes. We're going to have one video on adjectives, one on nouns, one on composite words, one on prepositions, and one on verbs in the different verb forms. When do we use stød in the different verb forms in general? Okay, thanks for watching this video. Thanks for your attention. Press the like button if you think this video deserves it. And vi ses snart igen. Ha' det godt.